Thank you for joining us today as we embark on this new and exciting journey. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the President of the Queensland Law Society, Christine Smythe, to formally open the inaugural launch of our Reconciliation Action Plan 2017.
Thank you, Louise. I would like to formally open the launch with a special acknowledgement to country. I have found that throughout this journey, that the most powerful and inspirational acknowledgement of country is one that is personalised and reflects the paths, inroads, struggles and history of our First Nations people. It is with that recognition that we acknowledge the First Nations people as the original inhabitants of the land on which this gathering is taking place. In the true spirit of reconciliation and inclusivity, it is important that we recognise and acknowledge the lands throughout our great state and indeed our vast sunburnt country in which you, and some of you with the assistance of technology, are continuing to view via our web streaming this evening. We acknowledge all elders, past and present, as well as emerging leaders of tomorrow, and thank them for their wisdom and guidance. In coming together, we recognise, respect, and celebrate the cultural distinctions of our First Nations people and value their rich and positive contribution to not only Queensland, but our broader community, the Australian society. To my mind, diversity is more than gender and age. It encompasses culture and experience and so many other things. Diversity and inclusion broadens our vision and strengthens our capabilities. This underpins greater community engagement. We keep saying that this word reconciliation, but what does it truly mean? In the context of our Reconciliation Action Plan, we seek to promote unity and respect between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and non-Indigenous Australians. We also aim to improve access to our legal system for budding lawyers who identify as First Nations people. We wish to support current Indigenous lawyers. We encourage Indigenous lawyers to succeed in their careers and go on to represent First Nations peoples in our judicial system. We wish to see the numbers of Indigenous people in our justice system and prisons decrease through improved access to justice and diversionary programs. We will support, promote and improve access to the profession through this Reconciliation Action Plan. How will we possibly achieve all of these admirable aims? It is through desiring reconciliation. It is through inspiring others to join us on the journey. It is through understanding and embracing the true history of this country and its relations with the First Nations people. It is through building respect for these relationships and understanding about truth and reconciliation. It is then about acting upon that desire by taking positive steps forward. Queensland Law Society and our members take our first step in support of reconciliation in our nation by delivering our first Reconciliation Action Plan, or RAP, tonight. This RAP is not simply for the Law Society. It is for all of us. It is for our members, but also our wider profession. For our students and for our families. It is for our judiciary and also for the wider community. Tonight, we make our small mark upon reconciliation in Australia. And I thank you for joining with us and supporting this important movement towards a better future together. I also thank those who have joined us on this journey since the beginning and those who have supported us throughout. It is now my pleasure to introduce the President of the Indigenous Lawyers Association, Ms Linda Ryle, to deliver the keynote address. Linda is well known throughout the legal profession and the community and is a tireless advocate for our First Nations people. Linda has been professionally engaged in the area of Indigenous affairs since the late 1990s, with professional experiences including corporate coordinator for the Giradula Council of Elders, the Whitsunday Coast, legal services senior officer in Bowen. Linda has also worked as an Indigenous legal service field officer with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander legal service in Mackay, Brisbane and Maroochydore. And since 2007, Linda has held an Indigenous justice role with the Queensland Attorney General's Department, being initially engaged as Inaugural Maori Court Coordinator. And this year, Linda was recognised with the QLS for her contribution to our profession with the QLS Award for the Inaugural President's Equity Advocate. Linda regularly presents at schools with professionals on First Nation issues, and we are delighted to have her here to hear about her vision for reconciliation. Please join me in welcoming Linda.
What a muli, and greetings to you all. It's appropriate at the outset that I acknowledge this ancient, sacred land and also the elders who continue to honour and abide by the cultural authorities which determine their responsibilities to traditional lands and culture. In every place throughout Queensland and right across the country, these obligations, they remain very real and they continue to exist. I acknowledge every single First Nations voice of sovereignty and call to action ever uttered by our ancestors and those who in more recent times have cut a path with their blood, sweat and tears to ensure people such as myself can stand before you all this evening on occasions such as this and be heard. Specifically, I acknowledge the cultural authorities of this place, now known as the Greater Brisbane region, the Turrbal people north of the Brisbane River, the Yagara and Inaugural people south of the Brisbane River, Mununjali to the southeast, the Minjerribah of Stradbroke Island, and the Noogie of Moreton Island, and west across the mountains to the Undumbi. I acknowledge you. I acknowledge you as we walk and talk and work and love and grow our children up on your sacred lands. I thank you for my continued safe passage as a visitor to your land, and I seek safe passage on behalf of us all here joining us in person today. My name is Linda. I am Birragubba. I am an Aboriginal woman. I am a mother. I am a learner, and I am a contributor. My recent family history is recorded as far back as 1845. Our family existence was originally documented on Kamilaroi country, New South Wales. This existence was then built upon by 6 generations of cultural and family connection to the Whitsunday Coast, North Queensland, Birragubba country. My people, our people, have of course sustained a challenged existence for many thousands of years, long before being accounted for in the Eurocentric context. Thank you all for joining us this evening, both in person and by virtue of the web streaming technology. Today is indeed a very significant day. This is an occasion for which the Queensland law profession, legal profession, can be immensely proud. I want you all to feel that. I want you all to grasp that as best you're able. I want you to understand the enormity of the opportunities that have to be realised through this reconciliation action plan. The possibilities this plan has the potential to generate in the context of access to justice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Queenslanders is almost beyond my comprehension. This is big. while Aboriginal crisis fatigue reaches epidemic and pandemic proportions, and governments across this country are reported to continually be falling a long way short with their expensive efforts at closing so many gaps. And communities continue to have their voices drowned out and their needs determined by someone else from outside. I quote Megan Davis when I say, in the context of the Uluru Statement, the need for structural reform was voiced at the regional dialogues, which also provided contemporaneous confirmation that public servants are the drivers in the seats on Indigenous affairs. And as in the protection era, we are rendered childlike figures, sidelined players in our own lives. And in spite, some individuals and organisations do our level best to make meaningful difference. This is big. At every conceivable juncture between discrimination, disadvantage, deceit, despair, legal dilemma, there's a lawyer. There stands a Queensland lawyer. And at your society, our Law Society, we have a plan. And this plan, it's big. It would be a very unlikely thing for any of you here not to be aware of the appalling statistics continuing to evidence the rates of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander disadvantage in this country. And yet, as a true testament to our resilience, and in spite of all the misery and hardship, the conversation, it's changing. In the 10 years up to 2016, First Nations families realised 70,000 more young people at school. First Nations university enrolments were reported to be outnumbering those of non-Indigenous enrolments per capita. First Nations doctors, accountants, psychologists and lawyers exist. We have First Nations magistrates in Queensland. We have First Nations judges who visit Queensland, usually on Federal Circuit Court. We are well represented in the trades, technology, and our entrepreneurs are as clever and savvy as any. Oh yes, times they are a-changing. And guess what? This is big. This is an invitation to participate. This is an encouraging document. It encourages you to learn. This is a potential toolkit. This is an opportunity to share. This here is an instrument of positive change. And this is big. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, First Nations people, historically have had, on the whole, a less than positive political experience with the personal experience with the law. Colonial institutions such as law societies have never been regarded by us as open or accessible, not Aboriginal friendly, not Aboriginal aware, not Aboriginal interested. So on the day when the RAP working group first assembled here in Law Society House, we were mostly First Nations legal professionals. We brought with us elevated levels of pessimism, yet just enough optimism to get us through the door, a degree of curiosity and a dash of scepticism, and an appetite for meaningful change. Our informed, authoritative dialogue was unapologetic. We were frank and we were fearless. Not a single working group member was interested in contributing to something that was going to be half-baked. And as the society leadership, they understood. They suddenly seemed to be a whole lot closer and a whole lot more within our reach. This plan was the result of many, many hours of discussion, deliberation, dissent, delineation, distributed decision-making, do's, don'ts, definitelys. A draft was realised and a members' survey was undertaken. Feedback, it was informative and it was enacted. And before any formal endorsement was received from Reconciliation Australia, there was action afoot. Such was the determination and commitment of the working group and the support and belief of the Queensland Law Society. This was a first, and this is big. You've heard how individuals went above and beyond to contribute to this work. The resulting plan is a testament to the number and the quality of ideas and contributions presented by the working group members. My sincerest thank yous to each and every single one of you. Already we have a new Indigenous staff members at the Queensland Law Society. The results of Indigenous-specific recruitment undertakings. And at this point I draw attention to both the quality and the number of applications received, and I acknowledge just how difficult and yet how exciting the application process will have been. For most First Nations people, the mere suggestion of an invitation to work at the Queensland Law Society would be something not normally contemplated. Another first later this week, when the Queensland Law Society and the Indigenous Lawyers Association of Queensland will be co-hosting a booth at Musgrave Park Family Fun Day NAIDOC event. And I'd like to note that this action idea was suggested by working group member Bianca Hill. Thank you, Bianca, wherever you are. It's very important that every Law Society member feels comfortable to participate and contribute to this ongoing plan and the development of future actions. This is big. Now, whilst you're all a captured audience, I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you a little bit about the Indigenous Lawyers Association of Queensland, noting that the Indigenous Lawyers Association of Queensland was successful earlier this year in our nomination to become the First Nations community partner for the Queensland Law Society. And that may shed some light onto our increased presence on the Queensland Law Society landscape lately. A number of our management committee, not only the current management committee, but previous management committees, and indeed our inaugural president in the back row, Nathan Jarrow, are here this evening. The Indigenous Lawyers Association was incorporated in 2007, and that makes us 10 years old this year. ILAC have always had a volunteer management committee, and many hours have contributed to the progression and ongoing relevance of this important organisation. A remarkable testament to our collective vision to advance the profile and interests of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, professionals within the legal profession and the broader legal landscape in Queensland and elsewhere. Some of the objectives which inform our work include increasing the number of First Nations peoples in legal, education and the profession. Develop and deliver programs and events to support and raise awareness of the issues facing First Nations people participating in the legal profession, and collaboration with other professional bodies, agencies and educational institutions. It is very important that I make it clear right now that the Indigenous Lawyers Association is not government funded and does not currently receive any financial assistance from any other individual benefactor or organisation. Everything that the Indigenous Lawyers Association does is as a result of management committee contributions and as a result of volunteer hours or funds generated in pursuit of our own self-reliance and independence. Our management committee are also heavily committed to the ongoing support and coaching and mentoring of others, in addition to our own existing study and work commitments. Yes, we live very, very busy double lives, but not the double lives that some might suggest we live. We have a number of events to take us through to the end of the year, including NAIDOC at the end of the week, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander mooting competition, which we've co-hosted with Allens, Ashurst and North Coeur d'Alene Chambers for the last 3 years. Well, this is the 3rd year. A Law Link visit, which is as a result of the Equity and Diversity Committee of the Queensland Law Society, and a Law Lines seminar, which is one of our own series of events. If you'd like to know more about us, a number of the Management Committee are here this evening. Please, when we break later, say hello. Find us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, even Google, Indigenous Lawyers. We're there. We'd love to hear from you. But just before I wind up, I'd like to share part of a reading I came across recently. It's written in relation to patterns of human behaviour, irrationality and decision making. And I'd like to couch it in the following words in the context of Queensland law and justice, the perceived exclusivity of the legal profession, and the 2017 Inaugural Reconciliation Action Plan. Consider the plan in this context as the door partially open. The excerpt is headed, "You can't keep every door open." And funnily enough, the very first words are, "This is a big one." But seriously, we often prefer to hold on to things that damage us for fear that losing them would be a far greater damage. Doors are possibilities, and we need to learn how to close some of them. Some doors are bigger than others. The size has less to do with the potential outcome and more to do with the difficulty of closing them. Some doors might lead to a new career or a better job. Some doors are tied to dreams and hopes. Some doors lead to relationships with people. Wherever a door may lead, keeping them all open can be exhausting. It can deplete your time, your energy, and sometimes your finances. The general principle here is that we have an irrational compulsion to keep all doors open. This doesn't mean that there's something irrational about keeping our options open. Just not every option is worth preserving. We must learn when to close doors, despite the uncertainty. Please, I invite you all to consider the Queensland Law Society Reconciliation Action Plan as the big door, partially open. And I will welcome you all across the threshold into the future of an inclusive, diverse, culturally safe, culturally intelligent legal profession for Queensland. And on behalf of the Queensland Law Society Reconciliation Plan Action Working Group, I commend this plan to you all, and I ask that the last one in close the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, for sharing your passion and generosity of spirit. I personally feel very humbled by your commitment and leadership. It is big. Over a year ago, a group of passionate solicitors, magistrates, legal students and Indigenous executives came together with the mission to create a document that would ultimately lead our profession down the path of reconciliation. This group was charged with designing a plan that would support, promote and improve access to the profession for Queensland's Indigenous lawyers. At this time, Bill Potts as President and myself as Deputy President wholly embraced this idea and gave our full support to what would be known as the RAP Working Group, led by Shane Duffy and, of course, Linda. This working group fully encapsulated the ethos of reconciliation. They were passionate. They had a drive to see a real and tangible impact on our Indigenous and non-Indigenous practitioners. Leading the charge internally was our own Louise Panisi. Where are you, Louise? Put your hand up. Congratulations. The working group first met in July of last year, with a first draft prepared for the wide consultation in the matter of 4 short months. I was impressed at this evidence of such passion from our working group members. Following further amendments and following consultation with the profession and key stakeholders, we presented our RAP to Reconciliation Australia for endorsement. Somewhat poetically, we were given conditional endorsement in May, and our council approved the RAP on the eve of National Reconciliation Week. And it just so happens we are launching in the week of NAIDOC, where the nation celebrates and recognises the remarkable diversity and continuing traditions of the oldest living culture on the globe. 2017. What is so significant about 2017, you might ask? Indeed, it is a monumental, some might say, big year. Not only is it the year we launch our inaugural RAP, it is also 50 years since the historic 1967 referendum, where over 90% of Australians voted to amend the Constitution to include Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the census and allow the Commonwealth to create laws for them. It is also 25 years since the historic Mabo decision, where the High Court of Australia found that terra nullius should not have been applied to Australia. This decision recognised that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have rights to the land, rights that existed before the British arrived and still exist today. As we move forward to reconciliation, it is important to recognise our past and come together. This is what we hope to achieve in our reconciliation plan. The plan has 3 components: profession-based, student-based and community-based. For our profession, there are 2 significant issues: the under-representation of First Nation peoples in the legal profession and the over-representation of First Nation peoples in our justice system. The first issue we see is that there are a mere 66 Queensland practitioners identified last year as Indigenous. And I'm sure the Attorney General's heard me say this before, that we have over 11,000 members. There's clearly more to be done. For change to occur, we must lead from the top, and this includes Indigenous judicial appointments from the ranks of our meritorious solicitors. Indigenous people make up 3% of our entire population. However, disproportionately, and strikingly so, 30% of those incarcerated in Australia are Indigenous. The state and federal governments must take proactive and tangible action to reduce the incarceration rate of Indigenous Australians and implement strategies that provide positive outcomes. Each step that we take, no matter how small, can lead the way to social change. Our RAP promises that we will create a First Nations special interest group to advance and advocate for reconciliation and related First Nations advocacy. Provide support and opportunity for education and awareness throughout the profession, and provide opportunities to strengthen relationships with our First Nations stakeholders, many of whom are here with us in the room today. Thank you. We will work to address the overrepresentation of our First Nations people in our justice system and the underrepresentation of our First Nations people in the profession. We also look forward to embracing our First Nations heritage by displaying Indigenous artwork on our premises. We also have the artwork from our 1992 publication, Aboriginal English and Law, authored by Dr. Diana Eads, displayed in Level 2 meeting room. Finally, I'm pleased to recognise Mitch Shannon, RAP Working Group member, solicitor and talented artist, for his outstanding work in his piece called Harmony. In the early stages of the working group, members were invited to provide words, stories, pictures and imagery that reflected what reconciliation means to them and their vision for reconciliation. It is fair to say that we were all blown away when Mitch humbly presented us his painting, Harmony. Mitch told us that the painting depicts two identical paths, each winding towards the centre from opposite points. These represent the paths which Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians can follow to achieve reconciliation. With his kind permission, the painting is now the symbol and the heart of our inaugural Reconciliation Action Plan. We are also very proud to have it displayed in our room 2.08 and encourage you to view and appreciate the painting. Mitch, on behalf of the Queensland Law Society, we thank you for your legacy and would like to present to you with a gift of our appreciation. I would like to take the time to acknowledge the work of Terry Steadman from our working group, who coordinated the acquisition of a beautiful mural from the Gunadju Family Support Service. This is currently displayed on level 3 of Law Society House. This is an exciting and significant journey before us, and I hope that by joining us tonight and in this journey that we have inspired you to start taking your own small steps forward towards reconciliation. So please rest assured that all of us at QLS are here to support you in your journey in your own ways.